welcome back once again to Saints Row 4. I have a very nice pimped out shark in my, I don't even know what this is, lounge that I never noticed before. But it is very pimp. And I would like one for myself. Did a little bit of surgery on myself. Tried to make myself look a little bit more Olivia Munn-like, since I wasn't really feeling the Kinsey look and I thought she looked more like Olivia Munn. Anyway, I decided to go with it. Yeah. So anyway, as I said last time, I was going to collect all of ZINYAK'S little text adventures or whatever the hell it is. I'm not actually yeah, it says text adventures. So yes, this entire episode will be ZINYAK text adventures. And I have absolutely no idea how long it will take to get through these, so it may be one episode or it may be two, depending on how long it takes. So let's get to it. Number 1, my youth. Our story begins in the remote village of Zinshire, a hamlet just west of Zinport, in the country of Zinland, on a planet known only as Zin. By nature, the Zin people are an uncultured and slow-witted lot, easily entertained by such diversions as arm wrestling and counting the spots on one's back. The people of Zinshire most especially fit this description, so I'm sure you can already foresee the struggles I endured in life. The first of those struggles were my parents. My father, a simple butcher, was a small man with a fierce temper. Of all the things I learned from my father, the one that sticks with me most has to be the proper way to butcher a Zin pig, a thirst for knowledge, or a lust for power. Well, it's gotta be a lust for power. My father, though as thick as the back hair on a newly born Zinfant, did indeed have an unquenchable hunger for control. While he never managed to rise higher than the head of a simple village council, he nonetheless carried the dream. My mother, on the other hand, a gifted seamstress who married far below her station, wanted me to enjoy the things so many others could not. I remember clearly, on the eve of my 13th birthday, her taking me to traveling Zin Spear Company's Les Danses Romantiques, ZINYAK'S pastry shop, or a camp for rowdy children. Let's go for rowdy children camp. Alas, ZINYAK'S camp for riotous youth was booked for the season. Aw, damn it. Romantique. Please, as if traveling company of such renown would step foot in a hovel such as Zinshire. Alright, a ye old pastry shop it is. One might think a place such as Zinshire would not support a fine bakery, and you would be right. It closed after a year, but it was not for lack on trying on my mother's part. She wished for her only child to have an appreciation for the finer offerings of life and began my education with ZINYAK'S delectable pastries. Not only did I sample the goods of ZINYAK'S shop, but I spent a summer there sweeping the floor, tending the counter, and even learning a bit of the culinary arts. I took to baking with zeal. Clients enjoyed my baking goods, and I became known throughout Zinshire for my cream puffs, fruit tarts, or ganache-drenched eclairs. Damn it. While my eclairs were amongst the best ever created, I was actually known for something else. Gotta be cream puffs. You're a total cream puff. Ha! Ah, I can still feel the layers of crisp dough flaking gently on my tongue awash in a smooth release of sumptuous cream. Even though ZINYAK'S endeavor was not long for this world, I continued to sell my renowned cream puffs door to door, a business which thrived, I must say, doing well enough to supplement by my admission to the most prestigious private school in Zinland. But that, my friend, is another story. To be continued. Yeah, so far, I'm not really digging your whole texty adventures, ZINYAK. They're more of just a stupid story that I have to get the right answer to continue your stupid story on, but Alas, let's continue on. The written word. I had acquired the money to attend the finest school in Zinland, but that was just the beginning. While I would love to say ZINYAK'S Preparatory Academy embraced me with open arms, the truth of the matter is I was not the finest student. In order to gain admission, I had to endure rigorous physical and academic testing before they would grant me access to their legendary halls of learning. As is usual for admission to a school of such acclaim, the first of these tests was aptitude test, killing my own parents, trying out for sport. Gotta go with killing the parents. My word, what sort of a barbaric school did you attend? I guess aptitude? Yep. As was my mother's wish, ZINYAK'S Prep was an institution that prided itself on its scholastic offerings. To that end, it only accepted candidates that displayed academic prowess and further promise. So it was that I endured many weeks of standardized testing and training prior to my entrance examination. I am proud to say that I took to the studies well and managed to bring up my scores across the board. Still, there was one subject above all others that I had a particular affinity for. As you may have already guessed, that subject was... science. To be honest, while I enjoyed the laboratory experiments greatly, I found science as a whole to be a rather dull subject. Art history. Though it pains me to admit such faults, art history was my weakest subject. The life of a museum curator, how I shall never know you. Math? Nope. While I am no stranger to the Euclidean paradigm, mathematics was not the subject that drew me in. Well, I wonder what it is then. Oh, the written word. Well, I guess I should have figured that since I'm reading his diary, essentially. Oh, the written word. I had, like most Zin, learned to read while in utero, but that was all very dry text such as manuals and design documents. It wasn't until this far more serious pursuit into academia that I came to love the classics. How surprised was I that some of the finest literature in the universe came from a tiny watery planet more than 10 million light years away. While it would be some time until I visited that seemingly unremarkable way station, I had fallen in love with its artistic offerings already. One author's work in particular captured my imagination. Can you guess the scribe responsible? Dr. Seuss. The good doctor's work is among the finest in literature, there is no doubting that. But I did not get lost amongst his colorful characters and impeccable rhyming structure as much as others. Twain. If I wanted to read about deceitful children, time-traveling charlatans, and overburdening bullfrogs, I suppose Twain would be the one. But no. Dickens. I shan't abide any author who dares suggest frugality and the demand for a proper work ethic are grounds for otherworldly intervention. I don't care if the worker's boy is on crutches. That man had a business to run. No, absolutely not. Jane Austen. Jane, sweet, sweet Jane, how like my mother's dreams you are. You know, this is really bad reading music. Even now, all those years later, just the thought of Emma, Eleanor, and Elizabeth's exploits and romantic missteps brings a lump to my throat. Oh, the intoxicating back and forth between Miss Bennet and Mr. Darcy. How I could read those lines toward infinity. It was my celebrated essay on Jane Austen's body of work that caught the attention of the ZINYAK'S Admissions Board, who not only allowed me entry into their fine institution, but secured my later position as head of the English Language Appreciators Society. Thus was my love of literature cemented and access to ZINYAK'S Preparatory Academy assured, which is where I met the teacher who would help me find my true life's purpose. Though that is another tale to be continued. ZINYAK'S Prep. I clearly recall my first tentative steps into ZINYAK'S Preparatory Academy. I was a lad from the countryside coming into this big city, eyes wide and mind eager. I had never seen a building so large or so many finely dressed young people yearning for knowledge. It was the first time in my life I ever felt I was somewhere I truly belonged. Of course, not all of the Zinlings there were courteous, studious-minded folk. Predictably, it wasn't long before I crossed the path of a brutish young man named ZINYAK'S. We instantly loathed each other. It was obvious from the start that ZINYAK'S took umbrage with my coat of many colors, lower class upbringing, prominent cranial crown. While I do consider it one of my finest features, my cranial crown was not the source of ZINYAK'S ire. Typical, no. I was now entering the proud and prejudice-filled society I had read about so eagerly just a few months prior. While ZINYAK'S was a bore and a constant thorn in my side, I found solace in my studies. Literature had engaged me early on, but the offerings of ZINYAK'S Prep allowed me to expand into even higher-minded subjects such as intergalactic warfare and how to exploit diplomacy for personal gain. What a world of knowledge there was to explore! More than any of the ZINYAK'S faculty, Professor Zinlo informed my later days. I remember clearly, it was just 2 weeks into my first year when Zinlo pulled me aside after class and said to me, "I'm a natural-born leader. People are all your inferiors. Never let anything or anyone stop you from pursuing your dreams." Yeah, it's definitely not going to be this one. Oh my god, it is. Has anyone ever told you that before? What a remarkable thing to say to a formative lad. And he was right. I, as the poor son of an ignorant butcher, had made it to the finest university on the planet. I wasn't just pursuing my dreams, I was living one. Those words kept me strong through 4 years of demanding study, kept my mind clear from physical distraction, and are to thank for my graduating with honors from ZINYAK'S Preparatory, a first for anyone from the hamlet of Zinshire. Upon receiving my diploma, I knew exactly what I must do. Kill ZINYAK'S, sure, why not? Oh, there we go, kill ZINYAK'S and then enter military service. Best of both worlds. Order of operation, don't you know? Yes, I admit, I let my personal dislike for that heinous bully overcome me, and I snapped ZINYAK'S neck like old bark flaking off a dying oak. My time at ZINYAK'S Preparatory now at an end, I entered yet another phase of life, one that would take me to a great many exotic locations and allow me to realize finally my true potential. Thus ends my years as a plucky child. Next we meet, I shall regale you with the tale of ZINYAK, the young man. To be continued. Military, the early years. After my time at ZINYAK'S Preparatory Academy, I did what all young people on Zin must do. I entered the military. Prior to my days at ZINYAK'S, I admit I did not look forward to this rite of passage, but after, I relished the idea of honing myself into the specimen I would later become. Basic training was, as it is designed to be, a particular sort of hell. I don't know what the rules are where you come from, reader, but military training for the Zin Army consists of a grueling 8-week course that pushes recruits to their breaking point. Some did not survive the training and were sent off to work in the mines or forced to join the Zin National Orchestra, famous across 7 galaxies for how hideous their music is. In order to endure the training, I often relied upon my thoughts of my childhood, my iron will and drive to do whatever, a manufactured hatred of the enemy. A wise man once said, "Without a target, we are all just bullets in the wind." I wrote that in my journal last week, and it's true. Whenever you find yourself facing a seemingly insurmountable challenge, it helps to envision all the turncoats, opportunists, and megalomaniacs that are just waiting for you to fail so they can swoop down and pick the meat from your bones. With a furnace of pure hatred burning inside me, nothing would stop me from overtaking any challenge set before me. It was evident in the later days of my training that I was going to excel at field combat, commanding troops, gotta be conquering worlds, It was evident even then that I had conqueror's blood coursing through my veins. I took to every task with gusto, never accepting anything but the best from myself and all those around me. I had vision, I had drive, I had everything needed to seize the universe by the nebulas and make it mine. After basic, I entered service and was sent to the front lines of the great war that was brewing on planet Bedard. There, I led the charge against the great Bedarian commander, Franscott. Using my innately keen ability, I surprised Franscott by murdering his soldiers and putting their heads on pikes, sneaking into his base under the... Definitely not that. Playing selections from the Zen National Orchestra at high volume. Nobody deserves that. No, but I like the way you think. Okay, apparently he snuck into his base under the cover of darkness. I'll be damned. While it may sound like a simple tactic, you should be aware that the average day on planet Bedard lasts an excruciatingly long time. But I and my charge held our position until the perfect moment to strike. We infiltrated Franscott's compound, trampled his men under our mighty boots, and shattered the door to his bedchamber, wherein I pounced upon the fool and smothered him with his own pillow. Even now, looking back, I can't help but smile. From there, I led the charge after numerous enemies of the Zin Empire. Soon the entire Bedardian army fell before us, and we had yet another notch on our already impressively carved belts. Well, apparently that was the end. Rise to power. A magnificent victory under my belt, my military superiors saw fit to bestow upon me a meritorious service in the glory of the almighty Zin commendation, Jesus Christ, and my first of many promotions. Recognition breeds contempt, though, and I made many enemies throughout my military career, but perhaps none more scathing, more heartbreaking than Zinfob, the Brutus to my Caesar. Zinfob served with me well against the Bedardian army, but his pride got the best of him when he questioned my authority, questioned my character, questioned my readiness to command. How dare you question my character? Impossible, my character is unimpeachable, and everyone can see that. Gotta be in front of the troops. No, not even Zinfob was foolish enough to do that. Citing my unquenchable bloodlust, cold and calculating demeanor, lack of conscience, all the things that were held in such high regard during training, Zinfob dared to suggest that I was unfit for high-level command. I was brought before my superiors in a mock tribunal, held simply to satiate Zinfob's whim, I assure you, where I was called upon to defend myself against these allegations. Complying with the tenets of the charade, I took my seat as defendant. As clear as the strained cries of a fallen foe, the charges were leveled against me. Against each one, I railed against my accuser, explained myself in a clear, concise manner. Remain silent. Yes, very droll. I stay quiet for no one. Sure. Admittedly, I may have used some coarse language as emphasis to underline my points, but I conducted myself as one ought during any legal proceeding. After carefully explaining myself to the council, they saw my point of view and dismissed Zinfob's case against me. Afterwards, I hunted my accuser down and killed him where he stood. That nastiness behind me, I not only continued to fulfill my role within the Zin army, but I excelled at it. After many more successful terrestrial campaigns against our foes, the officials saw fit to give me my own ship, promote me to Emperor, erect statues. I appreciate your zeal, but let's not jump ahead. Well, gotta be shipped in. Indeed! No longer was I a simple passenger on our interplanetary death vessels. I now had my hand firm upon the rudder. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Interplanetary death vessels are steered by complicated navigation systems. Now, a celebrated member of the Zin army, with a seasoned crew at my command, I blew up planet Zin and never looked back. Zin may not be the most cultured celestial body, but it's still my home. Gala? I do not have to throw galas in my own honor, thank you. Headed out toward adventure. It was time to leave terra firma behind me and venture toward the stars. After forcibly convincing my crew to celebrate my newly appointed position with a soiree in my honor, we lifted anchor and spread our sails, again, metaphorically speaking, towards destinations just ripe for the picking. And that, dear reader, is where my tale gets most exciting. To be continued. Ad astra per aspera. Okie doke. Like a siren calling ships to the rocks. The velvety expanse of space has been a harsh mistress to many. To me, the unconquered reaches were a challenge I not only accepted, but yearned for. So many poor souls blithely unaware of how mediocre their existences were, without a firm hand to guide them toward greatness. Oh, how I longed to be that hand. I am not a soul easily satisfied, so I knew my dream destination must be a planet that could challenge not the collective might of the Zin army, but my own fragile ego, political acumen, tactical instinct. Your ego! Heh, say that again and I'll kill you! Politics? As if any could. Okay, tactical instinct. The terrestrial victories I had accumulated in my prior campaigns often failed to adequately test my keen tactical instinct. The maneuvers and strategies employed by so many of my foes were woefully pedestrian on their best days. I knew somewhere in the celestial womb a leader must exist who could properly challenge me. How fortunate I was that I only had to eradicate 12 civilizations before coming toe-to-toe with the talented and well-trained forces of the Jet Yang theocracy. Despite what you may have heard about the people of the Jet Yang quadrant, I assure you they were ahead of the rest in their martial prowess. Perhaps most impressively, the Jet Yang had mastered biomechanic fighting mechanics, art of diplomacy, planetary shield technology. How about diplomacy? The Jet Yang theocracy's so-called diplomats could be bested by an amateur debate team. Shields? By harnessing the geothermal energy of Jet Yang's molten core, the theocracy were able to power a Dyson sphere-like shield around their entire planet. It sparkled in the sun like a chorus line of stars pirouetting in the surest glimmer of light. The way it shattered in the wake of our neutronic lasers was simply breathtaking. Upon our arrival on their planet's surface, the head of the theocracy, an imposing figure named Bishop Workzug, pleaded for not only his own life, but the lives of his people. Always a fair man, I agreed to meet him on a level field of battle, mano a mano. As true gentlemen, I even let him select the contest. Much to my surprise, he selected a board game. Gotta be arm wrestling. And I thought I had left such uncultured diversions back on Zin. I learned that this so-called sport had reached a far wider audience than I had hoped. Yes, Quirkzug chose to challenge me at arm wrestling. How, for a society so advanced in technology, thought I, could they be so taken with grasping hands and pushing? Little did I know that the cephalopodian anatomy of the Jet Yang, combined with the curved surfaces that pass as tables, allowed them great leverage at this sport. Oh ho! How clever Quirkzug was, luring me into a trap that played upon my own prejudices. Well done indeed. As it turns out, the winner of that match was... Oh wow. Yes, Quirkzug used his anatomical advantage to best me at that infantile test of strength. After shooting him through his enormous eye, I congratulated his corpse on a job well done. Giving the Jet Yang people no quarter, we made hasty work of their pathetic planet, and to this day, I keep Quirksug's desiccated tongue in my pocket. I rub it for luck, you sick bastard. Though I wasn't aware of it prior, the Jet Yang homeworld was a rich source for gemstones and minerals in rare reserve on other planets. With resources in high demand at our disposal, I was able to fund many more conquests throughout the richness of space. A fascinating story that I will tell you soon. To be continued. Oh, only 2 left. So sad. Because ZINYAK'S story is just so fascinating. The Great Zin Expansion. As you indubitably are already aware, the Great Jet Yang victory was just the beginning of my storied career in the Zin army. I still had numerous conquests awaiting me, including my first venture out toward a place the native scholars once called Via Lactea. I have no idea. Whatever. Possessing astute foresight as I do, coupled with my, at times, all-consuming need for control, I knew that before I set out to do anything more, I must find a second-in-command, acquire more ships, get some decent food. Do you honestly think I would have traveled all the way to Jet Yang Quadrant without bringing the finest chefs in the universe with me? I didn't, but I wanted to select that. Even I cannot be everywhere at once. I knew in order to keep my crew appropriately subordinate while still being able to have some essential me time, that I had to have somebody I could trust implicitly to oversee the orders I gave. Someone who could be my eyes and ears and also tend to my every whim without question. It was a plucky young soldier named Zinjai, who stood cranial crown and shoulders above the rest. I knew he would make a fine lieutenant, but as is customary to prove one's successor's worth, I first administered, well, it's gotta be a galactic aptitude test, a quiz to determine his understanding of basic etiquette. Oh my god, really? Wow, that was the last thing I expected it to be. I was not about to appoint someone as my military surrogate and manservant who was unable to appreciate propriety and tradition. I knew that if anyone were to even attempt to fill my proverbial boots, that they had to be able to do so in any conceivable situation. So it was I constructed a battery of examinations designed to test his etiquette across all manner of occasion. They really were brilliant, if I do say so myself. I am proud to state that Zinjai passed every test in spectacular fashion, though we did almost have an incident when we were attacked. Zinjai's brother died during an examination on proper cross-cultural greetings. A rabid Zin pig got loose upon the ship during a rousing debate on intergalactic politicking. Having endured my father's atrocious meat preparation as a lad, I forbade the use of Zin pig in any onboard recipes. His brother died? As was custom in his native home of Zinburg, Zinjai faced his brother in a duel to the death at the age of 3 years old. Zinjai won. Oh, I should note that duels to the death are used in some cultures as greetings. A most curious tradition, that. Apparently we were attacked. In what was a regrettable lapse in judgment on the part of famed Bunian tactician Ariel the Furious, the Bune Armada attacked us in mid-space during the most important segment of Zinjai's testing. After destroying the Bune fleet ship and flaying all the crew members, I beheaded Ariel the Furious with a bread knife and threw his remains into the onboard incinerator. Zinjai and I then went on to enjoy a most lovely meal full of fresh Bune steaks and delightful conversation. His testing over, I formally named Zinjai as my lieutenant/servant, and we continued our trek into Deep Space Nine. Per my grand plan, I set about culling the universe of its weakest cultures first, starting with the Kajowatiner tribes of Central Alpasia, the Goat Spray Alliance, the people of Earth. Do you really count Earth as one of the weakest cultures in the universe? You really should think yourself higher. The one I can't pronounce. The blah 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 tribes have been a blight on Central Alpasia since time immemorial. Really, I was doing everyone a favor by raising those heathens to the ground, but did the Unified Nations of Central blah blah show me any gratitude at all? Of course not. Monster, they cried. Psychopath. Nothing short of planet-wide genocide was going to shut them up, which thankfully it did. From there, I continued on my path, conquering every planet that stood in my path. Yet despite the sense of unparalleled accomplishment, I felt something was lacking. It was not until later that I would stumble upon my greatest achievement, my defining moment. To be continued in the final ZINYAK adventure, his defining moment. Yes, I held the keys to the universe in my grasp, yet something was missing. These victories, numerous though they were, felt hollow. I found myself wanting more, needing more. What could I possibly be missing? Blowjobs. It's always blowjobs. I had everything. Civilizations trembled when I announced my presence. My own army lived in fear of my wrath. What could I possibly be lacking? Or a television. Then, like an evolutionary link crawling from the depths of a primordial soup, it hit me. I had taken so many lives. For what purpose? Conquering was not enough. I needed to test them, to challenge them, to collect them. It was then that I decided to build a petting zoo. I considered it, but ultimately opted for something else. Museum or the simulation. Well, obviously it's going to be the simulation. In its own way, I suppose it is, but that's not the answer I'm looking for. The simulation. I could not trust those who fell before my might to roam around unsupervised in the real world, but a virtual one. That was another matter entirely. It came to me as a vision, a vast interconnected web of simulated worlds, designed not only to contain the best and brightest in the universe, but to break their wills and make them subservient to me, ZINYAK, galactic overlord and head emperor supreme of the Zin Empire. Oh, did I forget to mention I killed my predecessor and claimed his throne for my own? My apologies for the oversight. I tasked Zinjai with overseeing the simulation's construction. We would hold the physical bodies of my fallen foes in a nutrient-rich suspension designed to accommodate even the most peculiar metabolisms. Meanwhile, their minds would go on in a world of my own creation based on each subject's fondest childhood memory, deepest fear, or favorite food. Fear? Yes! Everybody aside from your humble narrator is afraid of something. Familial loss, a straying loved one, anonymity, spiders. That is me right there. He's got my numbers. Goddamn spiders, man. And by subjecting each victim to their deepest fear, to replay their most dreaded moment over and over and over again until their psyche shatters and their minds become malleable putty in my eager fingers, I could control them. I could control everyone. Once the simulation was completed, all I needed to do was start hooking up victims, throw a party, find a test subject. Throw a party. What's that idiom about counting chickens? Hook up some victims. I was excited too, but we mustn't be rash. Test subject it is. And who better to test the simulation upon than my right-hand man? Zinjai was not eager to participate in the simulation, but after a brief, though intensely painful, discussion, we saw the benefits of the architect being the first to walk into his own building. For hours, I heard Zinjai's screams echo throughout the ship, like the mellifluous song of a child in mourning. and I knew then that the simulation was my raison d'etre. It would set the standard for forward-thinking empires through the universe, and if any should ever match its brilliance, I will crush them and claim their design for my own. After extracting Zinjai from his personal nightmare, he gave his most wholehearted approval. When asked what his version of hell was, he said, "A life without me. A life spent cleaning lavatories of the Zin mothership." To be honest, Zinjai didn't tell me what his deepest fear was, and I didn't press the matter, for I had other things to do. With the simulation as my crown jewel, I took to universe conquering with renewed zeal. I found a pleasure in forced subjugation of sentient life forms I never thought I'd have again. My enemies didn't simply fall by my sword. Their wills were snapped like the bones of a mouthy subordinate. I no longer had only the echo of their dying words to remember them by. I had a whole world of twisted imagery and deep-rooted doubts and phobias. Oh joy! Oh cascading bliss! And I could visit them whenever I wanted. I had complete control. I held their brittle consciousness in my hand and could play with them like flicking seeds into the wind. The simulation was not perfect. Nothing is. Even the masterwork Venus de Milo is short a couple appendages. But it was mine, and it was beautiful. For those who tested my patience by attempting escape, I had protocols in place. When needed, I intervened personally. Though it was rarely necessary, many of the subjects thought they were exceptions to the simulation's rule, but I put every one of them summarily back into place. So it was I went about collecting the exemplary specimens from cultures throughout the entirety of the known world, with one exception, a certain destination whose exploitation I wished to savor. A place whose artistic contributions had first set me upon my path. There was someone there I especially wished to meet, and with the time-bending capability of the mothership, I could. But also, I knew any planet capable of literary work of that caliber must also breed warriors unlike any other. I was excited, reader. Every part of my essence shivered with anticipation, especially his penis. With the might of the Zin Empire behind me, I set out toward the far corner of the universe, toward a new galaxy, to conquer a planet I had only enjoyed through its culture, Earth. Le Fin! Wow, that was... Holy shit, that was quite the adventure we went on there through ZINYAK'S mind. My god, that was... Dude, that took me almost 40 minutes to go through his life story. You need to learn to shorten that shit up for the sequel, ZINYAK. So yes, this will be a very special episode. I thank you for watching.